Hey, this is Tiffany for Instinct. What is it telling you? I'm here at the Secret Space program in San Mateo, California. It's the second day. It's the last day. Yesterday was pretty interesting. I met a man who has been watching UFOs in the skies. He says that they've been having wars with these special glasses, these night vision glasses, since he was like 16. He's like 60 now. But he said that he's been watching them in the skies and that you can see activity all over the world if you have special glasses, these night vision type of goggles where you can see up in the sky. Heard a lot about the moon, how the moon is has openings inside of the moon, and that they're actually civilizations of extraterrestrials inside the moon. So I'm thinking like the grays is what I keep hearing, and different types of grays or humanoid gray, something like that, but with the big eyes and the head. And I've also heard that these grays, these beings don't have emotions, which is interesting, and that they are the ones that worked with our military and different factions of our government, and that's how we got a lot of different technology. So, and that they're on the moon, and I keep seeing for myself different footage of things happening around the moon, little crafts and things that people are just trying to say is this, is that. But something's happening with the moon, and it's very interesting.
Oh, this is the person who really got us to the moon. Was this man? This was one of my childhood heroes, Flash Gordon, and he was likewise President Kennedy's young childhood hero. President Kennedy was a young man when these films were being shown in 1936 and 37, 38, the 40s. He then became Buck Rogers, and he was the inspiration for our concepts of spaceflight. One of my sayings comes from an old Tai Chi master, T.T. Liang, who said, "To think is to create, imagination becomes reality." So the imagination that was put in our minds, or stimulated by Flash Gordon, and stimulated President Kennedy's imagination, made us realize or believe that we could go to the moon, and so we did. So one of my sayings is that President Kennedy was the real Flash Gordon. He's the one who put us on track to the moon. He's the one that gave us the inspiration, and he's responsible for getting mankind to the moon. This is one of 3 Apollo 10 photographs of the same object. I don't know about you, but I feel insulted when people try to fool me or think that I'm so stupid that I can fall for a false excuse. NASA says that this is a 1.5 foot piece of mylar. But what belies that is the shadow here can only be the shadow of the moon. And if you know geometry, this curve here is part of the circle. So if you circle around here like this and measure this arc, this wedge, that's about 10 degrees of arc. That's 1/36th of a circle, and the circle of the moon is just over 6,000 miles. So this thing is about 166 miles from here to here. It's not a 1.5 foot piece of mylar.
It's 166 miles long.
Yeah, at least.
So it's a ship.
I call it a space station. And this, as I said, it's one of 3 photographs that I'll show you. That's another. Oh, here we get to the space stations. This I was amazed, and I discovered this photograph just this in May. I was doing studies for this conference, and I found this Apollo photograph that shows several space stations, starships, V-shaped ships, space stations, and this is one of many that I have, and I'll see if I can run through them. Here's another version of it. for you. Now here's the interesting thing about this photo is that there's another object in this photo, which is a tower. But I will show you a better, that's a Russian photograph of the far side of the moon taken in the 1960s.
The dark side of the moon, that's...
Far side. They used to call it dark, but it's not dark. It has daylight at a certain time of the year.
Wasn't that difficult for us to photograph? Like that we couldn't go there, I heard?
Right. That's why the Russians sent photographs there, satellites to photograph it, the Zond photos. And I worked with them extensively because they are quite good, regardless of what anyone says. These were photographs, black and whites, that the Russians took, and then they were televised down to Earth. The television picture was taken, and at that time it was a very low quality resolution, but no one could have dreamed that we would have the technology to enhance these photos to the degree that we can today. But I would like to show you the most important photo of all of them. As far as I'm concerned, this photo relieves us of all doubt that someone has been on the moon for a very long time. This is Apollo 17 photograph of a region of the moon called Mare Smithy. The spacecraft is over Mare Smithy, and up ahead is Mare Marginis. These are areas that we can't really see very clearly from the Earth. They're kind of at that point where the moon curves and becomes the far side. But in studying this photograph, I found this. Now I'll give you the long shot first to establish this. This is the horizon of the moon here. And that horizon is 365 miles away from the spacecraft. So just to give you an idea of the distance. Up here we have one of those spacecraft that I showed you in the earlier photograph. But the most stunning part is this. This tower, which I have dubbed Big Ben on the Moon. And that is so high that you can see it very clearly from 365 miles away.
And two ships on either side?
One ship on this side and the smaller, farther away. But though that one is clear, that ship I was following through photo after photo after photo.
And then you saw
then I saw this.
The structure.
Yes. Because in fact my exploration, investigation was to find that so-called piece of mylar. So I was looking for other photographs of that taken from orbit. And while looking for that other one, I stumbled upon this on May 8th of 2014.
Just recently?
Yes, just...
And you've been studying this for a long time.
Oh, I've been studying Apollo since it was launched. And I've been deeply involved in lunar studies since 1992. When I first heard about towers on the moon, I was as skeptical as you are about towers on the moon. Not only that, I was told by the investigators who were doing it that they're made of glass. They're miles and miles high, and of course that sounds really strange to anyone and kind of far-fetched, so I thought so too. But then I started to see the photos that they had at that time, some of which were the Russian photos and some of our lunar orbiter photos, and I started to open my mind. And then I put myself to think logically, and I said, well, you know, a building miles high on Earth is kind of impossible. But when you think about the moon, the gravity is 1/6 the Earth. So at 1/6 the Earth's gravity, but even with our technology, we should be able to build buildings 6 times higher. So the Empire State Building is about a quarter mile high. So if we built 6 times higher than that, we could build a mile and a quarter on the moon. Then I thought about the story about the glass. Far-fetched. Well, not really, because the regolith of the moon, the stuff, the dirt, the earth, the regolith, is high. The highest content is glass-like substance. and glass is extremely strong. Thirdly, on Earth, we have to build for the stresses of wind and weather and storms that the Empire State Building actually flexes. And the World Trade Center towers used to actually flex quite a bit, maybe 4 inches, depending on the wind. But they were made flexible because of weather. There's no weather on the moon, so that is not a concern. There is an atmosphere. It's very, very, very low. And it's not a concern to building. So those 3 things, the abundance of glass, 1/6 the gravity, and the strength of glass, and no weather, that's 4 things that opened my mind to the possibility. And here we have, as I call it, Big Ben on the moon. And the reason I named it Big Ben is to honor the British people, because the British people saved us from World War III last year. When they refused to go along with the invasion of Syria, they saved the world for a while from just diving into hell, because World War III will be hell on earth. And my purpose is to warn mankind that we must all join together to stop the powers that be from leading us to self-immolation. President Kennedy said, "You should never engage in a war in which the fruits of victory would be but ashes in the victor's mouths." I heard him say those words myself on television at the time of the Cuban Missile Crisis, and I hold to those. We can never allow ourselves to engage in atomic war, because humanity will be wiped out by that.
And this is a big aspect of what the extraterrestrials are working with us.
Well, I think it worried them. I think they've been around for millennia. I believe the extraterrestrials are both the angels and the devils of the Bible, and that they've been vying for the resources of the earth, and one of those great resources is soul energy, humans themselves, and that the mythology of the Bible, the war between good and evil, angels and demons and so on, that there is a basis in fact, and that this is what is now. We're more advanced, so we can say, oh, that was the language of the ancient world, that was what they had to work with. We're more technologically advanced, intellectually advanced, and so we use words like extraterrestrials rather than angels and demons. But this proves that somebody built this, and it was not us, and it's been there a very, very long time. The interesting thing about this tower, as I told you, it's at that place where the moon curves around toward the dark side, as it was called. It's the far side. But this tower is just high enough over the horizon of the moon to be able to look at the Earth 24/7. So it could be we have observatories looking at the moon. This may be an observatory on the moon looking at the Earth. Seems quite reasonable to me.
If people want to get more information about your work.
UFO Digest. I publish on UFO Digest. I'm a co-editor, and we bring things like this to the public.
Where can they find that?
It's ufodigest.com on the internet. And so if you are curious or interested in seeing what's really going on the moon, or has been going on the moon, and why we didn't go back, you're like looking at evidence here right now.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
So I'm just finishing up my stint at the Secret Space Conference in San Mateo, California. It's been quite interesting, eye-opening. For many people, I think the things that I've learned here, it would sort of shatter their belief system, and they probably couldn't even handle it, because most people's realities don't encompass what I've just learned. They can't really fathom it. It would shatter their whole belief systems. So this information is not really meant for everybody. It's meant for the people that are seeking answers to our history, to our origins, to where we're going, where we're from. The last speaker that I spoke with, Michael, he mentioned that these beings, these extraterrestrial beings, the ones that inhabit the moon, and the beings like the Pleiadians, are the ones that have been referenced in the Bible. The demons, the fallen angels, the angels. And in those times, they had no other words to describe them. But now we're more technologically advanced. We understand more. And so we're starting to understand what they were talking about. That these forces do exist, and that we are in collaboration with them. Our governments are, the world leaders, the powers that be. It would be nice if one day disclosure could happen to where people felt it didn't have to be hidden any longer. That would be a refreshing day. I did hear one really interesting story about the moon. The person didn't want to share it on camera. It had to do with that these grays, that they feed on fear, right? And many say the purpose of this life is joy, to open our hearts to love. And there's always the lessons that come with that and the challenges of not choosing love, of having whatever reason, justification to fear, to not trust. And that these beings actually come to people in dreams, in visitations, implant ideas, concepts that make them not love, and can literally change destinies and relationships. Many times two people that are drawn to one another to form a really powerful union, I've heard, have been blocked by these things. So I just want to say these things have happened to me as well. I've had visitations in my life affected a lot by forces that have visited me and put me in a lot of fear. So now I'm starting to understand more about this, that you do truly have to fight for love and for your heart in this life. And when you have things that make you afraid, that make you fear love and following your heart, you have to go forward anyway, because there are forces that don't want you to do that. So knowing that now, you should fight even more for what you believe in your heart, because that's really why we're here. So just going to wrap it up for our episodes on the moon's shade of grays. And we'd like to give a special thank you to the Secret Space Conference and the Global Breakthrough Energy Movement. Please join us next time on Instinct. What is it telling you?